Good evening and a warm welcome to you from wherever you're watching us from. So glad you could make time to join us to bring you up to speed with the latest happenings in the country. Do stay tuned for an interview with Susan Jerry, who is an expert in curriculum studies, to engage us on all matters to do with the competency-based curriculum. So far we know the task force on CBC review has already begun going around counties to collect public views on how best the CBC can be improved. My name is Grace Angoy and our sign language interpreter tonight is Boniface Morethi. Now let's begin. Raila Odinga has accused President William Ruto of taking a personal vendetta against former DCI boss. Speaking in Nairobi, Odinga criticized Ruto for taking a personal vendetta against DCI boss. Odinga further questioned the probe into extrajudicial killings. President Ruto last month disbanded the Special Services Unit, SSU, of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations as part of his plan to address extrajudicial killings in the country.
One of William Ruto's grudge against George Kinoti and the DCI started way before the elections. Ruto appears to believe that the coming of the UDI regime is a perfect mandate for him to punish the officers he long had a grudge against. We are here to say no. We oppose that attempt to sacrifice state officers who, in the line of duty, may have rubbed politicians the wrong way and who are now being selectively punished for having done their job.
Moving on, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is probing Jubilee Party Vice Chairman David Murathe, former Lugari MP Cyrus Jirongo, and COTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli, and former Speaker Kenneth Marende, among others, in connection with a 250 million shillings land saga. Atwoli said to have received 60 million shillings, while Jirongo and Murathe received 25 and 20.6 million shillings respectively. While Kenneth Marende received 3 million shillings, according to EACC, the proceeds were obtained through compensation for land located in Nairobi, a property that currently houses public utilities, AEF, Ruben Primary School, a health center, a police station, and a vocational center. Now, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has called on county governments to put up a coordinated plan to supply food from the surplus-producing counties to the affected counties. The Deputy President was speaking during the official opening of the Mombasa International Show, whose theme was dubbed Promoting Innovation and Technology in Agriculture. Tiffany Wamboy gives us more details.
As the country faces harsh economic times and crippling periods of drought and famine, agriculture remains to be Kenya's top support to livelihoods and the economy. It is to this effect that Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has assured Kenyans of a transformation as the William Ruto-led government charges efforts towards the mitigation of the drought effects. According to the Deputy President, the Kenya Kwanza government has prioritized agriculture in its economic recovery plan, as it remains to be one of the top sectors that has injected value into Kenya's economy.
Kenya's economic growth has been heavily reliant on the agricultural sector. On average, the sector has contributed 25% directly to the GDP and 27% indirectly over the last 2 years. The sector remains central to rural economy, which is dominated by smallholder farmers, who contribute about 80% of agricultural production, while employing more than 40% of the total population and more than 70% of Kenya's rural population.
In acknowledging the ravaging effects of the drought situation in various counties, DP Gachagua affirmed that the government is committed to alleviating the situation and steering Kenya as a whole towards a better future in the coming months. He further called on county governments to develop a plan that will direct food from surplus counties to those in need.
The private sector, the county government, individual businessmen, we are making an appeal for you to contribute food and resources so that we can feed Kenyans who are suffering. This Saturday, His Excellency the President will lead the government in an awareness program of appealing for food and resources. He will be in the counties of Turkana and Samburu to distribute food and to make that appeal. And the rest of us will be all over the country making the same appeal so that no Kenyan can die from hunger, no Kenyan can suffer when other Kenyans have some surplus.
Speaking at the Mombasa International Show at the Mkomani Showground in Nyali, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua made a strong statement in affirming President William Ruto's directive to Roads and Public Works Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen to conduct an audit on the Mombasa port, which according to him has long seen attempts of impunity and state capture.
I would like to thank the Board of Directors of the Kenya Port Authority for their patriotism, because they refused to allow the stealing of the port of Mombasa. President William Ruto has already directed the new CS for Transport and Roads, Kipchumba Murkomen, to do an audit of the port facilities and establish what else has been stolen by the lords of impunity, state capture and conflict of interest, with a view of restoring the port to the people of Kenya.
Just last month, President William Ruto reversed former President Uhuru Kenyatta's move to have the clearance of goods done in Naivasha and had the process relocated to the Mombasa port. He defended the move by decrying the loss of jobs by thousands of people after the government made it mandatory to ferry all goods to Nairobi. Reporting for Hope TV Newswatch, I'm Tiffany Womboy.
Thank you, Tiffany, for that report. Moving on, Reuben Kigame, Pastoralist Parliamentary Group and Drylands Learning and Capacity Building Initiative have launched the Okoa Maisha initiative to help Kenyans affected by the drought. This comes at a time when the arid and semi-arid counties in the country are experiencing a fifth consecutive season of decreased rainfall, leading to water and food shortage. During the launch convened in conjunction with Christ is the Answer Ministry CITAM, Reuben Kigame, who is the ambassador of Hope Okoa Maisha initiative, called on Kenyans to give towards the initiative. He also urged the government to declare the drought a national disaster. Tess Njenga with the details.
Nasema kwamba ikiwezekana serikali yetu naomba kwamba itangaze janga hili kwa mara tena kuwa janga la kitaifa. We want our government to declare this one more time a national disaster. The current government needs to do that so that we can all combine efforts and rescue lives.
According to the Humanitarian Network and National Disaster Reports, over 4.5 million Kenyans in ASAL counties are experiencing acute food insecurity. An estimated 54,000 children are at the risk of dropping out of school at a sensitive time when students are about to sit for the national examinations. The arid and semi-arid counties in the country are experiencing a fifth consecutive season of decreased rainfall, leading to acute water shortage, livestock deaths, crop failures and mental health challenges. Reuben Kigame, the Pastoralist Group and Drylands Learning and Capacity Building, and other non-profit actors including Christ is the Answer Ministries CITAM have therefore launched the Okoa Maisha initiative to assist these Kenyans in dire need.
When we have a crisis, we need all hands on deck. And when we all come together, something happens to alleviate what could have become worse. Throughout history, God has used people to intervene in the lives of others. When there was hunger in Ur of the Chaldees, our great father of faith, Abraham, moved to Egypt and his family in order to find food and care. Indeed, that is how Israel ended up in Egypt.
We are pleading for food support, either in dry food or financial.
The initiative, which is targeting to reach over 1 million affected Kenyans, aims at mobilizing humanitarian support from Kenyans of goodwill.
All manner of support, whether you're a media house and you may actually offer to give us visibility to help amplify this message, that is cash in kind. So any innovative way, whether it's a young person who probably thinks of an app that we can develop to make sure that we rethink some of those questions you're asking, we are all capable to give.
So if you have anything, whether it's just 50 shillings, 100 shillings, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million, whatever God has blessed you with, we have set up a special number to which you can contribute. We have a pay bill number 188668. 188668. Go to your phone number, Lipa na M-Pesa, choose the pay bill option, and when asked for business number, enter this one.
During the launch, private sector players and the government were recognized for the ongoing humanitarian efforts and also invited to accelerate emergency interventions in the national disaster.
Kama unaweza kuhost hata family kidogo kwa muda, naomba uchukue muda ama uongee na wabunge na chiefs na county governments za huko. Maybe unaweza kuhost family kwa muda kidogo. Mimi mwenyewe nitafanya juu chini mpaka nichukue at least jamii ama watoto kutoka kule ambao wanaumia, nikae nao niwalishe. Nafikiri that is the way to do.
We want to make sure with Ruben, we shall make sure that there's no theft, there's no act of corruption. It will be clear that it is fairly and transparent and reaches the people wherever they are without any discrimination.
Weather experts have predicted a gloomy outlook of a sixth failed season for March to May 2023. However, rains have been experienced in various regions in the country over the last few days. Reporting for Hope TV Newswatch, I'm Tess Njenga.
Thank you, Tess, for that report. Now, Kenyatta University Vice-Chancellor Professor Paul Wainaina has been reinstated following the settlement over dispute that led to his exit. Speaking during his homecoming party at the university's Thika Road campus, Professor Wainaina vowed to fight land cartels who he claimed were masquerading as squatters. His return comes only a few months after his unceremonious departure from the facility on 12th July 2022 after land ownership tussle regarding construction of World Health Organization regional headquarters. Wainaina also pledged to reclaim the ownership of the Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital and revert it back to the institution.
To right the wrongs using the structures that we have that are able to deal with those kind of issues because they are anchored in our supreme law. That intervention has made it possible for me to stand here and say, I am back, I'm with you, and we are going to handle the issues that actually made me go away.
Let's now go for a fast break on Hope TV Newswatch. We'll be back with the interview I promised at the beginning of this interview. Don't go away.
I'd like to welcome you to the African International University graduation this Friday on 4th of November. We are proud to have our 2022 graduating class graduating this time, and we thank God who has led us through the year to this particular point. These are men and women who have been trained academically and who have been prepared spiritually and developed in character to do a great work in the marketplace. And we would want to encourage employers who need good workers to take them up.
On the next episode of The Wrap.
Thousands of people throng cities every single day looking for opportunities to make their lives better. They are employees, business owners, or just opportunity seekers desiring to have a breakthrough in their lives. Join me, DM Tanki, as we take this journey from the perspective of different successful entrepreneurs and corporate employees on Occupy Today every Sunday from 8 p.m. exclusively on Hope TV. Look and live.
Every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Spotlight.
Do you feel that they are in a place where they can effect a Barack Obama moment?
When you hear the word of God and you hear Jesus is speaking.
Real talk on real issues.
You know, the Bible says faith without works is dead.
The truth of the gospel that will survive the time is not a health and wealth gospel.
When there is time to harmonize and bring one composite amendment.
With idealistic, thought-provoking guests.
So people come to be serviced, to be encouraged, to be empowered.
When the storm is over, you desire the closeness you have with God.
Hosted by Reverend Edward Furi.
I'd like to welcome you to the African International University graduation this Friday on 4th of November. We are proud to have our 2022 graduating class graduating this time, and we thank God who has led us through the year to this particular point. These are men and women who have been trained academically and who have been prepared spiritually and developed in character to do a great work in the marketplace. And we would want to encourage employers who need good workers to take them up.
Thank you so much for staying with us. As promised, our guest is already in studio, Susan Jerry, an expert to do with matters of curriculum. She'll be engaged. How best we should move forward in regards to the CBC. Thank you so much, Susan, for joining us. We already know that the task force is already going around counties, getting views from Kenyans on how best the CBC can be improved. I know they'll be working for 6 months. So what should Kenyans be expecting at the end of the 6 months?
All right, thank you, Grace. First and foremost, it is clear the president had already said that there is no way they are going to scrap off the CBC. But the task force, I think it's well enabled. And if they're able to do the work they are required to do, because first of all, they are required to check the CBC in regards to the government policies and the nation's policies. They are also meant to work on how to restructure it and make implementation easier. They're also meant to work on how to make the implementation work and also deal with the ambiguity and ineffectiveness and even people being not sure. And also the task force is meant to deal with how resources are meant to be managed and also how to just make it work for the schools and also the teachers. And also they're meant to work on the pre-service and in-service training because it was clear that teachers felt that there was no proper training for CBC. And therefore the task force is meant to work on it. And in regards to higher education, the task force is meant to work on financing higher education, because we know the CBC, the structure is focusing on higher education more for the 3 years senior school, and also after senior school, the tertiary or people who would want to go to university. So it will work on, or it will look into financing higher education, look at the help, for example, how it's working, restructure it, and it also look at how to make open universities where people can learn, and also the open distance and e-learning, which is the ODEL. They're working to see, the task force is meant to see how this can operate. And if it's done well, I'm sure it can work, because I won't say it's too late to scrap off, but I think we already are aware that chances of scrapping are not working. But if all those can work, the implementation, the resource management, encouraging the ODEL learning, and also pre-service and in-service training, it can work. Because CBC, just like a child having teething problems, a child needs preparation. I think that's where we had a problem. But if the task force is, the team that is there, that is deployed, I'm sure that it's a team that can work. If they're able to deliver, then we will be fine with the CBC.
Mm-hmm. Now, Susan, there are complaints from parents that they are being engaged at this stage, and concerns that they weren't engaged at the initial stages when the CBC the Ministry of Education was coming up with the CBC. What are your thoughts on this?
All right, curriculum implementation and curriculum change happens for different reasons. All right, so when this reason, they came in and said we need to change the curriculum, it's not a problem, but it seems like that some stages were skipped. So for example, the stage of involving the stakeholders. Well, there were interviews that were carried out for students. Some teachers were involved in the interviews, but parents are key stakeholders in implementing the child's curriculum. But so far, CBC feels like it's the parents' work, because homeworks are given, homeworks that teachers are not able to do, the child is not able to do, is the parent who's being involved. Parental involvement is becoming too much. Well, it's not bad to have parents involved in their children's education, like it can be encouraged, but when it's now overused or exhausted, it feels like the parents are drained, especially in the involvement. But I also feel the parents were not informed. They were not educated on what to expect on CBC. But if the reforms are made, if the task force that has been given this work, the mandate to work on it, and they work on it the way it should be, curriculum process involves educating people, the stakeholders especially, and involving them. So curriculum change is a step. So you come up with the ideas, and it has to be addressing a certain need. So if parents are involved and informed on what to expect, I feel that's an area where parents were not very much involved. But if the task force is able to work on it, then we will be fine.
There have been mixed reactions from parents. Of course, you've already answered a bit of it. Mixed reactions from on the implementation of the CBC. Do you think there's anything the Ministry of Education could have done to kind of ease Kenyans into the new curriculum? Because for some, they saw it as a shock. There's a new change in curriculum, no engagement from the parents or the teachers. What could the Ministry of Education have done?
All right. CBC was very enticing. The promises it was giving, competency-based, a lot of subject areas for children to feel involved in, and also saying that we shall now have continuous assessment instead of exam-based assessments, and it was very good. But now the problem is it feels like we were not ready in terms of resources, because I remember when we were in school, we will do home science and art and all those subjects. And still, at no point it felt like parents were being requested to bring things constantly in school. I feel like that's an area the government should work on, and also in terms of providing resources, because there is a curriculum. So this is what needs to be implemented. So by the beginning of every academic year, or even in the long term, they know, for example, grade 6, this is needed for grade 6. All right, children will be learning this concept. So what is it as a government or as the Ministry of Education can we do to to provide the resources to implement. Because if you give a curriculum and you don't provide the resources, it's becoming a burden to the parents. So I would wish the government can foresee what is needed and provide the resources. As much as we know they might not provide like 100%, but at least try to meet parents, especially with this economy. So that I feel it's a burden. So if we can have resources, especially given to the education sector, especially primary education. There's so much to learn. CBC has a lot to learn, but the resources need to be there. And also the government should ease the burden on the parents especially. Yes.
Susan, you've mentioned on home science. Previously, home science, art and craft, music was in 844. So what informed the decision to scrap it off and then now again reintroduce some of those subjects as practical lessons in CBC?
All right, it's a bit interesting that they scrap it off but still use it. But also curriculum change has a bit of different dynamics. You can choose to delete, to add, or to review some of the things. So curriculum change is about that. You can choose to delete, add, or review some of the things. It's not bad that they are still introducing them, but it is sad that at some point it felt like they were dropped in especially primary schools. So it felt like they were dropped and now we are picking them back. But curriculum change involves different dynamics. Sometimes you can change, you can review it, you can scrap some things. So I feel like they're just implementing what we already have in a new name, but also CBC has new additions. Like for example, at a senior level, students are given an opportunity to explore their talents at the 3 different categories, where you can choose to do the art sciences or the social sciences or the STEM. So it's a good opportunity for them, but also, curriculum involves different ways. You can choose to change, review, or delete some of the things. So I feel like CBC is very good if the resources are given and if people are well informed about it, but
It's common knowledge that public schools in the country face a challenge in regards to learner and teacher ratio. With the activities that usually are in the CBC, there is a challenge that the teachers are not able to meet the students or learners' needs, because the learners, you can find a class has 60, 70 learners, and the activities in that particular lesson is more involving to the teacher. So what do you think the government can do in order to sort this challenge?
I think teacher ratio is not a challenge now that there is CBC. Teacher ratio has been there for quite some time, especially when we started the free primary and free secondary education. Teacher ratio became, because the enrollment rate increased for like between 2003 and 2017, the enrollment rate increased by 40%. So when there was increase in enrollment rate, I think the government was also not very well prepared on how to cater for this new enrollment. So teacher ratio is not a problem with CBC. It has been a problem there initially, but also it's not, teacher ratio is different in different parts of the country, especially the urban areas. Teacher ratio is not a major problem as compared to rural areas. And also the rural areas is also depending on the different areas. Some areas like where there was and the arid areas, I think the teacher ratio is a bit lower compared to the urban. With employment, at least TSC has tried to employ at least 8 out of 10 teachers, or out of 10 classes needed for especially primary and secondary schools in urban areas. And also we have the implementation of especially the BOGs working in schools. And also the government had started the contract-based employment for teachers and interns. And it actually took very many teachers in the internship program, which helped reduce the teacher ratio. But teacher ratio essentially is a problem we've had for long, not just in CBC. But well, as you said, CBC is becoming, because of the activities and all that, teacher ratio is key. So it's an area that I would wish the committee works on.
Still on matters to do with like public schools, primary and secondary schools, there is a problem of inadequate or good, well-structured infrastructure in the schools that it poses a hindrance to implementation of the CBC. Moving forward, we don't know whether there is a few chances that the CBC will be scrapped off. More chances are that they're going to try and improve on how it's implemented. Do you think that working on the infrastructure is one way that the CBC can be improved, its implementation?
I think that's a definite yes. We have a long way to go as a country in terms of infrastructure, especially for public schools. And it's most in the urban areas, we still have a long way to go if we are to work with the CBC, because there was an incident where people were learning how to swim. Most of the public schools don't have swimming pools. So there's a long way we need to go. And I think that's an area where the people who came up with the curriculum had not looked into. It is okay for our learners to learn these skills, and especially the physical skills and also the sciences they're learning, but we still have a long way. In my opinion, the government needs to work on especially structures, because like now, if ICT, for example, ICT is to be implemented across all levels of education, the different pre-primary and the lower secondary, is to be implemented. Some schools don't have electricity, some schools don't even have access to the internet, so I feel like the government still has a lot to do. The Ministry of Education has a long way to go, and I'm hoping the committee will come with such reforms and also suggestions on way to improve this. Yes.
Susan, you're the expert here. Should the homeworks that learners are given to go home with, should they be that parent engaging? Should, you see there are a lot of memes going around that learners are told to go and cook, and then they bring the food to the teachers in school. So how essentially should the homework for the learners be? Should it be based on their age, or perhaps the teachers are giving them beyond what the learners can handle?
First of all, it's not a teacher problem, the homework that they are giving. The teachers, remember, are guided by a certain, if it's the lesson plan, you're guided by it. And the lesson plan, when you're making the lesson plan, you're guided by the curriculum. So even now the CBC books that come in, they are directed. This is what you teach, this is what you give home for homework. So again, it's not more of a teacher problem, it's more of the curriculum need to be worked on, because the teacher just does what is guided. So also there's a problem of teachers haven't been trained very well on the CBC, and also who trained the teachers? The universities. So when the universities are not involved in the training of these teachers, you realize these teachers go to the field or go to the job market without the knowledge for CBC. And that's the biggest problem we have, the in-service and the pre-service training. So the teachers don't know how well to implement. So they're given that and they're given to give it. So on the homework, I feel like because it's the learner, being a parent and a teacher at the same time, the learner should be guided on what to do. The work of the parent should be also guiding the learner on how to go about it, not actually doing it. But some of the homework, it actually feels like it's a parent who's doing it. So that's an area I think the task force or the trainers who be given the opportunity to train our teachers, they should look into, and also KICD, when they are coming up with the different materials, the resources, it's an area they should work on. Just assess if this work is for a 4-year-old, is a 4-year-old be able to do it? Because again, the different dynamics in families are different. Some parents are not available. So you find the children are the ones who are suffering, in the sense that my homework is never done. So the teacher thinks you never do your homework because you're indisciplined. So that's an area the KICD especially, because they come with the resources, should look into, and also the schools. If you're giving homework, assess it in a way that is the child able to do it with minimal guidance. Of course, I'm not saying with no guidance, minimal guidance, because also parents need to be involved in their child's education, even if it's not 100%, yes.
There have been concerns from parents that grade 6 learners are too young to join their counterparts in secondary schools. Moving forward, they are expected to join next year, I believe. So what can the government do to ensure that these learners, perhaps there are no incidents of increased cases of bullying or harassment? Because remember, they're 11 or 12 years and they're joining their counterparts who are 17, 16, 15. So what can the government do even as they join junior secondary school?
On the joining of junior secondary school, in my opinion, I would actually wish they do their junior secondary school in their initial primary schools. And my reason is this. We already have these classes that are there, the grade 7 and 8, that are already available. First of all, we already have a shortage of resources. So why waste other resources while trying to create a new room for the junior secondary while you left the classes in the primary? Because I don't think at any point that those classes will be filled, because they are already available. So I don't think they'll be used immediately or with immediate effect. So I feel like the students should remain in their initial primary schools. And also, at the age of 16, and we have high schoolers who are at the age of 18, I feel like it's a big gap for them. And also it will be a big leap, especially for the grade 6. Some of them are very tiny. Some of them, physically, they're tiny, and also their age. An 11-year-old working with a 17-year-old, because high schoolers are 17, 18, and even some even 20. So I feel like it will bring us back to the bullying, initial bullying that was there in high schools. And also it will give trauma to some of the kids. And especially if we are now to make them travel distances, it will bring a burden to the parents, and also might cause trauma to students, in my opinion.
Finally, if you are given a moment to speak with the committee chair, or advice, what advice would you give the 42-member task force in regards to the implementation of the CBC?
First of all, I trust the committee led by Professor Raphael. I feel like they are well able, but I would just, what I would wish to tell them is they need to look into the implementation of the curriculum and resources, and more so look at how they will train teachers in this CBC, because teachers feel like they were thrown in the deep end and you're meant to deal with something you're not sure. It feels like things are moving so fast. They were thrown in the deep end. So I would wish they work on how to make teachers more comfortable, provide the training resources, provide frequent training, and also stop talking about the teachers. There's a time they were suggesting teachers should go to school more oftenly, but also see on how to, should go back to school and do the trainings, but also should see how to do the teacher training, provide resources, and the training should be done by experts, not from different levels, and also involve the universities and colleges and the tertiary levels for teacher training, because those are the people who will come to the market in a few years. So what is it do you want them to learn? So if they're involved at that level, then it will be easier to have people who are ready, they are market ready, so that they are able to deliver what is required of them.
That was Susan Njeri. Thank you so much for coming. That was Susan Njeri, an expert on curriculum studies, and we've gotten a chance to dissect matters to do with the competency-based curriculum. Let's now take our second break here on Hope TV Newswatch. We'll be back with more stories. Don't go away.
On the next episode of The Wrap.
I'd like to welcome you to the African International University graduation this Friday on 4th of November. We are proud to have our 2022 graduating class graduating this time, and we thank God who has led us through the year to this particular point. These are men and women who have been trained academically and who have been prepared spiritually and developed in character to do a great work in the marketplace. And we would want to encourage employers who need good workers to take them up.
Thank you for staying with us. Moving on, the Cabinet Secretary, Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action, Aisha Jumwa, has said the country is facing a shortage of public servants as there were slightly above 900,000 public servants serving the country's population, which is about 49 million. According to Jumwa, the number needs to be increased to ensure that Kenyans get quality and efficient government services. At the same time, Jumwa reiterated the government's commitment to ensure there are more Huduma centers at the constituency levels.
The public service is demoralized, which is true. I have listened to the PS and the managers in public service. Yeah, something needs to be done, right from their salaries and other benefits that comes with their offices. So I think mine is to making sure that I have facilitated the conversation to making sure that we are getting a point of the public service being, the morale being revamped. Huduma Kenya program has worked wonders and I'm very much impressed. Na ndio maana nikasema ya kwamba siku 100 zinazokuja katika ofisi, mimi pamoja na hii timu yetu ya huduma tuko na programs ambazo tutaenda kurun. Na ya kwanza ni ile ambayo nilitangaza juzi kwamba tumeongeza muda wa kuhudumia wananchi wa Kenya kutoka saa 1 asubuhi hadi saa 1 usiku. Na pia hizo huduma contact centers zote zitakuwa zinafanya kazi kutoka saa 1 asubuhi hadi saa 3 usiku kwa mfumo wa zamu. Tuko na mpango wa kuongeza huduma mashinani, kupeleka huduma mashinani kabisa. Na tutashirikiana na wajumbe wetu, tutawapatia mwelekeo na mwongozo wa ni vipi wanaweza kujenga huduma centers katika mashinani kabisa. Kwanza kama ulivyosema masuala ya kwamba tunakabiliwa na wakati mgumu kiuchumi. Hilo ni swala ambalo halifichiki, lipo, lakini sisi kama wizara tunafanya kazi yetu kuangalia na kureview kutoa mapendekezo ya kureview mishahara ya wafanyikazi. Hilo ni jukumu letu. Tutareview, ikiwa hela zipo mambo yatafanyika, ikiwa hazipo tutaweka, tukingoja mambo ya kijipa then hizo vitu lazima zifanyike.
The Global Leadership Summit kicked off on Thursday at Sitem Karen in Nairobi, bringing together powerful leaders from across the globe. The two-day summit intends to inspire both young and old on leadership skills. The summit has been happening for the past 15 years, with the leaders using their own stories to inspire and motivate upcoming leaders. Kawira Linda filed the following report.
Thursday marked the first day of the Global Leadership Summit at Sitem Karen in Nairobi, with the summit's main mission being to equip people with various leadership skills. Deliverance Church Langata Senior Pastor Dr. Geoffrey Kamau challenged Christians to love and care for one another during this period where most counties are facing droughts.
My purpose of living is to be able to serve and to love and make a positive change. And if that can be the objective of every person in this country of Kenya, then even in a time of the challenges we are having, like now the famine that we are experiencing, if we are willing to become loving and caring, we can care for people and maybe less problems can be there.
At the summit, both women and the youth were challenged to take up leadership positions.
As women, we historically tend to take a back seat when we have the opportunity to take the lead, because that's how we are socialized, especially here in Africa as well. Women are supposed to be seen but not heard. Women are supposed to be homemakers, and that's what we tend to see a lot of. But I would like to encourage you, when you find yourself just thinking about being in the lead in an area, when you find yourself constantly being sought after for a particular thing that you do very well, when you find yourself always coming up with solutions to a problem that you see no one else is doing, That is your entry point into leadership. And please, I urge you to follow that calling.
Christians, young and old from all parts of the world weighed in on the summit, terming it as an avenue to learn leadership skills as well as an inspiration to pursue their dreams, regardless of the challenges they face. The summit ends on Friday, 4th November 2022.
What stood for me in the first session is that as a young person who is out there making an impact, because I'm a founder of the Hope Mentorship Program, is that I've been inspired not to get afraid, of pursuing my dream, and even also not to be afraid of applying those great opportunity. And I feel like by the end of tomorrow, those opportunities which I have not been refused to apply or pursue, I'm going to do that because I have been inspired to go after that I am passionate about and I love to do.
Kawira Linda, Hope TV Newswatch, Nairobi.
Thank you, Linda, for that report. Now, residents of Kajiado West are facing a water crisis and are forced to walk long distances to get water for their basic needs and for their livestock. The residents say private investors are exploiting them as they have to dig deeper into their pockets to get the expensive commodity. The residents are now calling on the government to intervene in providing them with water.
Drum ni ya kungoja maji, na hiyo maji hauna guarantee, si guarantee ya kwamba utaipata. Hata hiyo maji unaweza pata saa 3 ya usiku na umekaa pale kuanzia 6.
Wananchi wanasafiri parefu kutafuta maji, hata mifugo. Sasa mifugo wamechoka, hata kufika kwenda kuchukua maji sio rahisi. Na tungependa kuomba serikali yetu ya Kenya ama county yetu ya government waweze kuja kusaidia wananchi hawa kwa sababu saa hii maisha imekuwa ngumu.
Now, 17,700 primary school learners across Laisamis constituency will now have a chance to have at least one meal a day after Lake Turkana Wind Power Limited LTWP promised to begin a 2-month emergency relief program that will see the learners have a meal a day for the remainder of the 2022 school calendar and the beginning of the 2023 school year. Speaking about the program, LTW CEO Philip Leferink noted that the company was invested in programs that benefit local communities. LTWP will be donating food worth 13 million shillings with 124,000 kilos of maize, 33,000 kilos of beans, 3,730 liters of cooking oil, and 1,480 kilos of salt to be distributed directly to the schools by LTWP's community liaison team.
So today we are here in Laisamis Primary School. We received, in our planning, we actually have planned to distribute food for 6 weeks. That's going to get up for 17,702 children both in primary school and some ECDs. The food is supposed to providing is maize, dry white maize, 2,278 bags. Beans, 661 bags, and oil, cooking oil, 186 jerrycans of 20 liters. That is about 3,720 liters of oil. We also provided 1,420 kgs of salt that's supposed to go to various schools. So we are covering about 67 schools in total. Within Laisamis constituency, that is covering both Lengalan sub-county and Laisamis sub-county, along with a little part of Baragoi sub-county, which is south of basically what the prime schools within sub-county of Baragoi, which is south of sub-location. So we have offered the food for actually 3 weeks, and we still have a remaining of another 3 weeks that we are supposed to supply come next year, the 23rd of January 2023.
And now for some sports news, Cabinet Secretary for Sports Babu Namwamba has met with chairmen from the Football Kenya Federation Premier League clubs on Thursday afternoon at his offices. The clubs have advised the new CS to heed to the call from FIFA in a letter on the 24th of February to reopen the Football Kenya Federation Secretariat and allow the officials back in office. Cesna Mwamba said that he has already spoken to FIFA 5 times and he will speak to them again to find a consensual resolution for the return of football. Kenya has been under FIFA suspension since February this year over government interference after former CS Amina Mohamed disbanded the federation and installed a caretaker committee.
Been in consultation with the widest spectrum of stakeholders in this area. I have also been constantly on the phone with FIFA. Indeed, I have spoken to FIFA 5 times already. And I'll be on the phone with FIFA again immediately after this press conference. My conversation with FIFA has been about finding a consensual resolution to the impasse that has hindered the return of Kenyan football.
Request of the demands, the conditions laid down by FIFA in their letter of 24th February this year be complied with, to the extent that the Vice President of the Federation be restored, and 2, the Secretariat Kandanda House be open, 3, that the Secretary to the head of the Secretariat, Barry Otieno, be also restored.
KCB RFC stunned Kenya Harlequins 14-10 in the quarterfinals of the Floodlit Rugby tournament on Wednesday night to secure a slot in the semi-finals. The Bunkers have set up a date with Kenyatta University Black Blood in the semi-final encounter slated for Saturday. The first half of the match was a tight duel between the two sides, but KCB's forward Nelson Nyandati managed to get a try for his team that saw the halftime score stand at 8-7 in favor of KCB. The Floodlit Rugby tournament offers build-up matches to various teams that will be participating in the 2022-2023 Kenya Cup season, scheduled to kick off on the 26th of November.
For us, because we are using this tournament for a build-up for the Kenya Cup, we'll still try some of the things that we have been working on throughout the pre-season. So there's still a lot of testing that is still going to happen, and a lot is still be expected from us. I know we'll pick up from where we've left from. We'll keep on graduating as we go on, and we will play much better as a team. There's been a challenge because we are trying out new things, new technique, there are new players who are coming into the system, and we are trying to drive new things. So the biggest challenge was just getting back and trying to be at 100.
We knew the game would be riddled with mistakes because it's the first game of the season. So no excuses, but yeah, kudos to Queens. They brought the A game on, but we, on the other hand, didn't play as we expected.
And that sports news brings us to the end of this live broadcast. Many thanks for keeping me company. My name is Grace Ongoy, and a sign language interpreter tonight has been Boniface Morethi. See you again next week. Bye-bye.